Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. What do I always say? It's a blessed day when I can be above ground, and I'm so very grateful for that. Well, welcome to this platform, acknowledged as Project 365. I am Portia Wheatley. I am the founder and the president of a nonprofit organization acknowledged as Trophy of Life Incorporated, where we have the great pleasure of rendering hope, encouragement, and we added on inspiration to the whole wide world. As far as God takes us, that's how far we're going to go. We're committed to doing that and bringing to you voices that have a message of hope, encouragement, and inspiration. Well, today I have the great pleasure of having a friend of mine. A matter of fact, I'm not even going to introduce her right now. Hold that right there. Just view the beauty of her right now, and then I'll bring her on momentarily. Before we release her, we want to make sure you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Subscribe to our channel, and that will help us to take the message around the world. Before we even get started any farther, I want to share a word, a motivational Monday word. This is a word from a friend of mine. Matter of fact, she's just like a daughter. She's my neighbor, Jennifer Pyatt. But she's just like a daughter. I mean, got to bring correction, but she does for me just like I was her mother. So we have a great relationship, and I'm grateful to God for that. She's a great neighbor, but she had an experience, and she had maybe a couple of difficulties, and she decided to encourage herself, and she shared it with me so that we can encourage you. Listen at this. Sometimes when we are at our lowest points, we really question ourselves. What is our purpose? What was our purpose? Why am I still here? Especially if we are realizing new things about ourselves, such as she was. There's no need to question, though, because our story is not over. We might just be one of his largest vessels. Our story will be bigger, our story will be greater. He is using us, though, just in a different way. One day, I know I will have a great story, but it's just not time yet. I think that is a good way to encourage yourself. Sometimes we go through things and we want to be out of season or out of time. But if God says it's not time yet, hey, step back, encourage yourself of where you are, and God, in due time, God will give you the victory of whatever it is that you need, and He will bless you to go through that particular situation that you are experiencing. All right, I am ready to introduce my guest on today. Our topic today is teenage pregnancy, and I really, really would want you, our audience, to listen. If you have teenagers, whether they are pregnant or have been pregnant in the past, bring them to the screen to listen, or somewhere in listening distance. Young men, if you have impregnated someone, this is for you as well. Parents of pregnant teens, or those that have been pregnant or going through a pregnancy now, listen. And the church, teenagers, parents, and the church, listen to this message. This is from experience. This is from experience. So I many times I say it's good to have head knowledge, but it's also good to have that experience when you can walk through it and then come out on the other side in a much better way, and then turn around and pull and educate and encourage and inspire those that's gone through that situation. Well, today my guest is in the person of Marshe Holmes, and thank you again, Marshe, for accepting the invitation to come and be a part of Project 365. And on that note, you got it. Take it away.
So thank you, and hello to everyone that is joining us on today. Thank you again for just allowing me to participate and be on Project 365. It is an honor. So just to kind of get going, I can be very talkative, so I want to make sure to stay within our time frame. But just to kind of give you some background. So for me, my life as a teenager was just great. Like it started out wonderful. I had a blast as a teenager. So when I say that, I started out a little early as a preteen. When I say I think I obtained my first job when I was 12 years old. So at 12, I was bagging groceries at a grocery store. And I even remember, asking my parents and begging them, could I work? And I remember my dad kept saying, why are you trying to work? You're just 12 years old. You don't need to be working yet. And, and I remember him telling me, Marshe, once you start working, you're never going to stop because you're going to get so used to having your own that it's going to be hard to get used to that new life of, okay, now I don't have it or I can't get it. So he was like, I'm just warning you, before you start, you'll never stop. And I kept saying, yeah, okay, I hear you. I mean, I'm 12. I'm like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. But he was so true. Like I never stopped. From the time of 12 years old, I've been working. So even though I started early, working, it was still a great time for me because I was able to make my own money, spend my own money, save my own money. And it was just that time between that period of being a preteen from 12 all the way up until I got about 15. I was having a blast. I was shopping, going to the malls. I mean, I had my own money. And I've always been that person who was independent, didn't want to depend on nobody. And that's what I told my father. He's like, why you want to work? And I'm like, because I don't want to have to ask anybody for something. I want to be able to be responsible and have my own. And so, so that time frame was just good. Like, times are different now. Like I remember just going outside and just having a blast, staying out all day, still working. Like the kids today, they don't know nothing about that. It's like they in the house 24/7. They don't even know what's going on outside the world because everything is geared to social media or being on your phone or tablet. So again, life for me was so different. But however, as I was, going in high school, so I was back, I think a rising sophomore. And so during the summertime of me becoming a rising sophomore in high school, I tried out for the girls basketball team. Now I love basketball, but I'm a horrible basketball player. Horrible when I tell you, but I just love the game. So, I tried out for the basketball team and I was going to practice every day. I've been going for about a month or so consistently every day, trying out, doing what I'm supposed to do. And we're preparing for the fall season coming up in the fall. So that's why I was going on summertime. And about a month after going to practice, I found out I was pregnant. So this was like, I had to quit the team. I couldn't play ball no more. I couldn't even finish the tryouts and make it to the tryout season. And I remember coming home from the ride from the doctor's office. And with that ride, as I approached home to tell my parents, in that moment, I knew I had to tell them, but I never thought to hide it. I never thought to lie about it. Um, for some teenagers, they deal with that. They may not have that trust level with people or whatever they're going through in their family, and they hide their pregnancy, which causes so many other issues emotionally. And not only that, sometimes it can hurt the baby if they're not getting care, proper care during that time frame. But I never thought to hide it. And I think my main reason for not hiding the pregnancy and just coming out, telling them, I literally told my parents the same day I found out. As soon as I got off that car, I walked in the house. And it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life. When I tell you, I'm saying so hard. And I think one of the reasons that I knew why I couldn't hide it, because first of all, my parents were very involved in my life. Like my mom was on it. Like she wrote down when our cycles came on, she checking. I'm like, I can't hide this. Like that was one thing I knew. I can't get away with this because they're too involved. So that was one thing. But then the other thing was that I knew a reason I couldn't hide it because this child didn't ask to be here. So I'm like, oh man, I can't just, be in shame this child when they didn't even ask to be here. And I knew that that I was going to have to endure a lot of ridicule, a lot of shame that I was going to have to go through with my church, my parents, my father being a pastor, with school. So I was like, listen, I knew in my head, all this is going through my mind as I'm approaching to get to the house. And I knew that I was going to have to deal with all that. And I was saying to myself, Marshe, you're already going to have enough to deal with. So with all the stuff that you're going to have to deal with, you can't hide this. Like if nothing else, you got to own it. So at that moment, I was like, okay, this is what it is going to be. So I remember, I never forget, as I told my parents, I can remember that like it was yesterday. I mean, the entire scene, like some things you never forget. Like I know every step. I knew my mom when I walked in the kitchen, she was washing dishes. It was just one of those things. At the time, my father lived in New York. He was a pastor in New York, pastoring church there, but he also was stationed in the military there. So, just having to share that news with my parents, it was, I felt their hurt. I saw the disappointment on their face. and it just changed everything for our family, our entire family. Um, as I was saying about, growing up in a traditional Pentecostal church, I knew that I was going to have to deal with a lot of ridicule and things like that. So, after I told my parents, and, and my being that I was in Virginia, I was under my grandfather's church because my dad was in New York. So my grandfather, they real old school. They old school, like don't wear no pants, no makeup type thing. I'm talking old school. They're not like that now, but back then they were. And so, the one that when the news came out or whatever, I actually had to go in front of the church and actually apologize and ask for forgiveness for the church, literally stating my sin type thing, and I was relieved of all my duties. I couldn't usher anymore. I couldn't sing on the choir. It was basically like I was silenced. And during that time, I've seen it happen before, but because I had a relationship with God at the age of 15, like I really had my own personal relationship with the Lord, and I was very strong in my faith, that I was able to recover from that. Because hindsight, as I got older, and I'm like, wow, when I thought about all the things that I've gone through and having to come in front of the church and having to be shamed like that, I was thinking to myself, wow, they could have lost the soul. When I say that, I'm saying it could have been where, hey, I don't want to do this church thing. I don't want to be a Christian. If this is how the love of Jesus works with people, when you make a mistake or if you come short, if you do something wrong, this is how they're supposed to show love. I was like, that doesn't work for me. So, I do also know that that was the older church and they only did what they were taught and what they knew. So I had to keep that in mind as well. I knew that they weren't intentionally trying to hurt me, but the way they went about handling, my mistake or my bad choice at the time, to me, it wasn't the best option. However, thank God, again, I was able to recover from that. I didn't let that hold me to the point where, oh my gosh, I'm done with church. I no longer want to be involved. That didn't happen to me. But again, I'm quite sure today there are some who may have walked away from church or not want to be a part of because of maybe what they experienced if they did something wrong. Because the truth of the matter is everybody was doing something wrong. I'm just telling you, you know what I'm saying? I got put on Front Street. Yeah, my business got out there. But at the end of the day, you just don't operate like that now. And even today's church, I think that, and I'm glad that I know that the church has evolved since then, and we're handling things better in that nature when certain situations come up like that. So, so I got through that part of my life, and it just seemed like dealing with all that, dealing with the hurt that I caused my parents. And not only that, going to school was totally different. Like I learned who my real friends were. Like people treated me different. They looked down on me. It was a bunch of rumors going around, and it was just like a real challenging time to have to deal with all three scenarios and then also be pregnant. So my life just dramatically changed. I mean, dramatically changed from the time I made a decision. Now, keep in mind, I told you I had a great childhood all up until this time, and everything changed with one decision that I made. So, I remember my parents. One thing that I can say that I'm very grateful for, even though they were hurt and disappointed, they told me early on, they said, listen, we're going to give you a place to stay. We're going to provide food for you and your child, but this child is your responsibility. Don't ask us to keep them, babysit, none of that. And I was like, oh my God, like I just was like, I'm thinking like I'm 15, like, I don't know anything about being a parent. They were there for wisdom and guidance. But now as I got to my senior year, when I started graduating, getting ready to graduate or whatever, I saw the purpose and reason for that. And it made me become a mom, grow up fast, but yet still it made me more responsible. Like I had to, even though I was still in the 10th grade, I still had 3 years of high school left with the kids. So every football game that I wanted to go to, basketball game that I wanted to go to, my son was with me. He went with me to those games because my parents said they were not keeping my kid for me. That was just option they're not doing. Of course, there was a lot of things that I still couldn't do. I couldn't participate in any extracurricular activities because I had no one to watch my son. So that meant playing basketball. If I wanted to cheerlead, to be in the band, absolutely not, because it required after school activities. So with that, it was just like, wow, I lost a lot, from high school. I didn't get to participate in a lot of stuff. I couldn't go to no dances after the game, none of that. You can't go to no dance with no kid. Like, that's just not an option. So, but again, looking, it's like back then I was like kind of upset, but now I'm like, wow, I urge parents now, if you're watching this segment, if you are a parent and your child has a baby, you know, the thing that I think to me the best thing you can do is make that child responsible for that child. Make them feel the pain of having to raise a child. Because what happens is what I've seen, for the parents who do too much for the children who have these babies, they're constantly watching them, and then the teenagers are all out in the street, they're still at the mall, they're still hanging out with their friends, and then you wonder why they're coming back pregnant again for a second and third and fourth time with these children, and they're never learning the true responsibility of being a parent, a mother. And that means financially too, you know, making them get out here and you paying the babysitter. You got to find a job and figure out how I'm going to pay somebody to keep my child while I'm working, while I provide for this child. And so, you know, those are some of the things that I've seen with current situations going on now. Like I said before, I didn't understand it then, but now I realize why my parents did what they did and why they made those choices. It was that tough love, but it was worth it. When I tell you, it was really worth it, because it made me own being a parent, being a mom, and being totally responsible for my child. Um, you know, and as I was saying about how I knew I kind of, you know, I really hurt them. I saw the hurt, the disappointment in them. Neither one of my parents were able to graduate from college. So they had strong hopes for my sister and I to do well. You always want your children to do more than what you've done. That's just, as a parent, you want that. So I think when I told them the news of being pregnant, it was like, oh man, I guess they saw that, wow, she's going to really have a long road to go. You know, this is not what we had envisioned for her life. And so by me being able to see and experience the hurt that I caused them, it was like I signed the dotted line for myself. And when I say sign the dotted line, I made a commitment to myself to make sure that no other options in life. I have to be successful. I have to provide the best life for my child, and that I had to make my parents proud. Like I said, I felt like I let them down so much that I had to do everything possible to strive to be the best person I could be. And so with that, you know, I was going through this emotional roller coaster from 15, because keep in mind, I was pregnant at 15, but I didn't actually have my son till I was 16. So, you know, sweet 16 coming around, everybody having big parties, and, you know, that's a big thing out, you know, that's a big thing today. And no, my 16, I was sitting at home, my mama rented a VCR tape for me with a card, and that was it. Like, they are not playing, like they serious about this. So I was like all in my feelings, but I'm like, what you think? Like, a lot of times we how can I say, emasculate or celebrate certain things, and you don't allow people to realize, yeah, you know, when you make a bad choice, sometimes you have to let people lie in that for a moment so you can see what it feels like. When you push people too much, like, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing ever, you know, they're not really realizing how you're impacting people, or how it's impacting your lifestyle, and how it's changing things. So you know, that for me to be able to come up, when I said I signed the dotted line, that all came from the tenacity, as I always refer to, that God instilled in me. It's an innate quality that he gave me from day one, from the time I came out of my mother's womb. And when I tell you, that tenacity is what always kept me in a positive form, where I was able to overcome the adversity that I faced in my life. And it's amazing how God had already prepared me for this. And I'm thinking, like, he already got our life planned out. Because if you remember, when I first started telling you at 12 years old, I already had a will, a go-getter, hustler attitude, to work, hustle, do what I need to do, and not knowing where that intestinal fortitude was coming from. I was 12, but I didn't know, but it was something inside me that pushed me to want more out of life, even at 12. And so it was like God already knew, like, this chick about to make some crazy decision in a couple of years. Let me go ahead and hook her up, put some good tenacity in her, because she's gonna need everything in life to help her get through these hurdles she's about to, you know, go through. So that's why I'm like, oh my God, not realizing that he already given me everything I needed to succeed in life. Even though I made bad choices, he already given it to me. So I really, to me, I pushed through, I reignited the fire of tenacity that I already had at the age of 12. I reignited that fire of tenacity. And once I did that, I was able to experience a whole new dimension of success for my life. And, you know, it just went from there. And as I began to move on, I graduated from high school on time. I didn't miss no time. Graduated from high school on time. I worked full time after I graduated. I went to school part time. And even throughout the early parts of my college years, I was still dealing with some issues and some problems that I hadn't dealt with. You know, we all got some stuff that, yeah, I can progress a little bit, but there's still some gray areas in my life that I was not dealing with. And those gray areas begin to take over my life. And so what happened is I made a Grand Canyon change. And when I say Grand Canyon, when you think of Grand Canyon, you think of ubiquitous, like huge, so large, you can't even, like, I made a Grand Canyon change, and it was drastic to the point where I stopped practicing insanity. I removed myself from an abusive relationship all through, this high school, college that I was still dealing with. Those are the gray areas that I still really wasn't dealing with. And so when I began to experience these life-threatening events in my life, at that moment, I knew I had to make a Grand Canyon change. I was like, okay, we're going to do something real dramatic. So I actually just, like I said, I removed myself from the relationship. I got rid of every superfluous distraction. And when I say superfluous, I mean unnecessary. It's absolutely not needed for my life. I removed it from my life. And then I developed a cold stone mentality. And when I say cold stone mentality, that doesn't mean hardcore like that. But, I love ice cream, sugar, junk food. That's, me. I work out so I can eat. That's just what it is. So, but Cold Stone has different sizes. And one of my favorite is the gotta have it. That's like, I gotta have it. So I developed a Cold Stone mentality where I got to have it. I already have made up in my mind that everything I want and desire for my life, my career goals, my personal goals, and the life I wanted to create for my son, I gotta have it. There was no other options. Once I made that Grand Canyon change, that's when my mindset got set on, okay, Marshe, what are you going to really do with yourself? Because that's when it took like 7 years for me to get my bachelor's degree. Because I'm out here acting a fool. Like, I'm doing good in life. People see the good and I'm progressing, but I still had those gray areas that kept backpedaling me back where I could not continue to progress like I should have. And it wouldn't have taken me that long if I had just got myself together like I should have. But it took me 7 years to get my bachelor's degree. And right after I finished my bachelor's, I went straight to grad school, got my master's degree. As I began to progress in my career, I ended up starting my motivational organization, Be True to Me. Because I felt like I had gone through so much, and I felt led that I needed to inspire and motivate young women, teenagers, women who are just getting out of college, women who are 30s and 40s and they still trying to find themselves. They don't know what they want to do with their life. Like, I had gone through so much that I knew I had something else to offer. And so it's a struggle when you're trying to find yourself and actually be true to yourself, but it's worth it. And to me, the dots did not start to connect for me until I really took inventory of my life and really figured out what I needed to do, what am I called to do. And it's funny because when you're trying to be true to yourself, it's a challenge because when you got to call your own self out from being short on some stuff, we quick to point somebody else and say something about somebody else. But when you point into yourself and you call a spade, and you're dealing with your shortcomings and realizing what you're not doing to be successful or to be progressive, that's when it changes. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's you. That's you right there all day long. So, once I was able to identify with my shortcomings and to see what I needed to do to be successful and get rid of all that unnecessary items in my life just catapulted. I mean, it just went on, it progressed. And I'll never forget, I'm gonna do this one short story and then I'm gonna recap and open up if we have any questions, because like I said, I can get long-winded, so I'm gonna keep it short. So the one story that will stick with me for the rest of my life, I mean the rest of my life. So probably about 2 years ago, and this is pretty recent, 1.5 to 2 years ago, I was at work, I got a phone call, and it was from my oldest son. He called me and he said, "Mommy," he's like, "I made it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, I made it. I'm here." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm listening to you. I'm at work. What do you mean?" And so he says, and then I heard his voice become a little emotional, like he was reaching. I'm like, "Okay, I hope he's okay. Like, what's going on?" And he said, "Mommy, I'm here walking down the halls in the highest office of the United States of America." He said, I'm walking down the halls and I'm reminiscing. He said, "I'm in the White House working directly for the president of the United States." He said, "I'm walking down the halls reminiscing about how I grew up and how I'm 30 years old. And statistically, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm supposed to be in jail because I was born to a single mom who would never make it, who would be on welfare, who would never be able to achieve anything." And he said, Mom, I'm walking down these halls. I'm seeing all the pictures of the previous presidents. I'm going into all the different offices. And he was like, I beat the odds. He was like, I beat the odds, Mom. And when he told me that, and he was like, Mommy, and he just told me, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. And in that moment, when I tell you, oh my gosh, like that phone call sealed the deal for me, because I knew that everything that I had gone through, from bagging groceries, pumping gas, being a waitress, working at the mall, working at fast food, working in call centers. I mean, I've done so many different jobs to do what I needed to do to just make sure that I signed the dotted line and stay committed to what I told you I was going to do. It was like everything that I've gone through, even the abusive relationship that I had to deal with, it was worth it, so that I got to this point to hear my son say, thank you, that everything you did for me, Mom, it was worth it. Like I beat the odds. And I was like, wow, like that was like one of the proudest moments you can have as a mom. It's not about, oh, how much money I make. Where no. Look, listen, when you get to that point where everything you've done and sacrificed and worked for, and you can now see the fruit of your labor, it was like, yeah, it was all worth it. So, just to recap for the people who are listening, if you're a single mom, if you're listening to it, even if you're a teenage pregnant person, if you're a son who's impregnated somebody, I urge you to make sure you change your fear into fire. Change it into fire. Get that fire tenacity where you're going to do what you got to do. You're going to make the Grand Canyon change. You're going to sign a dotted line and commit to yourself to pursue the goals and all of the career goals and personal goals you have for your life. Everything that God has called you to be, like, you got to commit to that. And that's the thing. People don't want to commit to it. It's like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to do this, so I say I'm going to do this, and then they never go through with it. Like, come on, it's time out for that. Like, you really have to make these changes in your life to make sure that you're being true to yourself. And I always tell people all day, it always goes back to being true to yourself. Like, once you take inventory of your life and you really call yourself out in areas that you're slipping on, that you're not being proficient in, that's when you'll get the aha moment. Like, okay, I see where my errors at. I see where I'm falling short and why I'm not getting where I need to be. Because we're so quick to point the finger at everybody else as to why I couldn't succeed, why I haven't gotten there. I work with so many young women that I mentor, and they're always saying, well, I didn't have a good family life, and my parent was here, my dad was in jail. They have a whole list of stuff. And I'm not saying that that's not a reason why you probably didn't get certain things in life. But as I tell my young people, once I'm in your life, once I'm mentoring you, and I've given you the tools you need to make it in life, you can no longer put it on somebody else, because I've told you what you need to do to get ahead. So that's the thing, as the saying is, once you know better, you do better. So you can no longer keep pointing the finger at my situation or how I was raised or whatever the case may be, or whatever happened to your life, as to why you're not progressing. When someone has taken the time to share with you, to give you books to read, to put you in seminars, go to conferences, so much free material on YouTube, social media, where you can educate yourself to become better. So I always tell people, start with you. Be true to yourself first. And once you get that going, then you can watch your life just move forward and progress and obtain all the goals and things that you desire for yourself.
That was great. I love that. I love the presentation, because I myself was I became pregnant as a teenager, and thank God I had a great well, he wasn't my husband then, but he was my boyfriend then, became my husband. And just like you, I had to finish school, and he was one that um, he took Craig while I finished my last year of school. And he and his mother, I would just see him on weekends, but it was a great opportunity for me to get my GED.
Yes.
But it's amazing. God had a plan for us from the very beginning. He had a plan for us from the very beginning, and it took strength. It took courage.
Mm-hmm.
A question for you: what were some of the statements that people made to you while you were pregnant? You're 8 months, 9 months, and the side eye and all of that. So, what were some of the statements, and how did you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Because this goes on, it still goes on today.
Mm-hmm.
But I want some of the adults to that never experienced teenage pregnancy to know what some of these ladies are feeling.
Yeah. So for the statements, I think it was more so with school. The funny thing that what happened with school is, for me as a high school teenager, I didn't start showing till later on. So because I got pregnant in the summer and it was already in school when school started in September that I was pregnant, that's something that I had to deal with, the rumors, because of the fact I didn't show till I was like 7 or 8 months. So all during this time I wasn't showing. So the rumors around school was that I had an abortion, I got rid of my baby. I mean, it was so much that I had to deal with. Like, oh, you know, she's pregnant, but she's not showing. Then it was like, oh, she got rid of it, she had an abortion. It was just so much. So that it wasn't so much a name calling, it was all the rumors that you constantly hear and come back to you. That was like, wow, it just kind of breaks your spirit down. I'm trying to get through this. And it's enough to deal with it as, you know, with everything else, but just trying to get through it. And then have to come somewhere every day that I'm required to come. I can't just skip school. Like, I have to come here. So I had to deal with it, dealing with the phoniness and the people who say they're your friends. You got to laugh and hee ha, but I already know, you know, as soon as you leave, you're running your saying, because, you know, you hear certain stuff. If I know certain things were only told to certain persons, and I know who said what, you know, type thing. But and even with the church, it wasn't so much name calling. I think it's more so, like I said, it was just the point of not being able to participate. How and then even to this day, like I'm 48, and when I go back home, I'm still noted as the girl who got pregnant at 15.
Wow.
So it's never been where I've been able to get out of that type of situation. It's like, that's what I feel like I was the scarlet with this lady with the scarlet red, the red letter. It was like, okay, can y'all let that go? Like, I'm grown now, and it's still like, oh, you know, that's Bishop's daughter. That's the one who got pregnant. If it's like, okay, like, why do I always have to be identified as that? And you know, and it's not all the time, but you know, you hear it, and you're the one that's got the kid, you know, yeah, I'm the one. Like, it's like they don't know me by anything else other than that. And it's more so the older people. I know they don't mean no harm, but you know, thankfully I'm not a person who wears my feelings on my shoulders like that. And I was gonna say too, that dealing with all those different stages of ridicule and shame, it made me a tough person as far as my exterior. And sometimes that can be a negative and a positive, because I can come off aggressive to people and I don't really take a lot, because I've had to deal with so much during that time as a young person. So I'm not that pushover person that was like, oh, I'm gonna get in the shell. No, I'm gonna pop back at you. And not saying that's right, but you know, when you go through so much stuff, you know, you develop this tough exterior. Like, okay, I had to go through all this, so I have to make sure that I'm this tough person for myself, to protect my child. And then you don't realize that the things that you go through in life, even younger, it molds you into the person I am today. So I have to dial back a lot, you know, sometimes when I'm going to respond a certain way or react a certain way, because I'm still kind of like, yeah, I'm not the one, because I'm gonna tell you, I can show you better than I can tell you. So those type of things, like, you know, and I'm not a fighter or nothing like that, but I'm more a person where I'll show you by me progressing and doing what I need to do, because I don't want you to underestimate my ability. So again, but that came from trying to have, you know, this, to create that tough exterior during that time.
So if there is a teenager that is watching, or that will watch, or parents that you are able to share this with, a young lady or a young man, because it's not always just the young lady, it's the men, young men as well. What could you share some information about how to contact you, whether it's for your mentoring program, or if they just want to talk or share or whatever?
Sure, yeah. So I definitely provide mentoring to young women, even to young men that may be going through any of these type of situations. And they can, you know, contact me on my website. It's betruetome.com. So that's the letter B, the word true, a number 2, me.com. Again, that's the letter B as in boy, the word true, TRUE, a number 2, me.com. So they can reach out to me on betruetome.com. There's a contact page on there, and they can send me a message and it'll come directly to me.
Great, great. And I do know that you have t-shirts and sweatshirts. And I think I want to give one of those away today. And of course, let's see, what is the reason for giving it away? To a young man or a young lady who may be pregnant now. Um, And those t-shirts usually have positive words on them. Tell me again about, just share a little bit about that.
Sure. So that all of the motivational t-shirts have some type of positive word or positive saying that will allow you to actually declare and decree what you feel or what you're going through or what type of mentality or space that you're in as far as your mindset. So of course the tenacity t-shirts are a number one. It's a hashtag tenacity. I'm wearing the no longer practicing insanity t-shirt. So there's a lot of different, there, when you go to my website, you'll see all the different positive sayings that you can pick that even might, speak to you. We have, even the Black Lives Matter, my Black Life Matters, I will breathe. It just depends on what you're feeling, what you're going through, that you feel like, hey, this resonates with me, and I would love to represent that brand.
Good, good, good. So what you would do, let me see, whoever I would give it to, the first one, the young lady or the young man, you email me at info@trophyoflife.org. Okay, info@trophyoflife.org. Usually Takira is here to help me to remember what my, what my email is. Takira, I miss you, girl. Um, I think that's it. I tell you what, this has been great for me, and even myself, it brought up some not necessarily some emotions, but some thoughts, because I've been there, done that, didn't stay there, and my mother was an evangelist. But somewhere along the line, young people will find a way.
Oh
Young
yeah.
people will find a way,
Oh yes.
and before you know it, boom, 9 months is here and
Mhm.
whatever. But you don't have to stay in that state, whether it's in your mind or that condition, in a sense of, oh, this happened to me, my life is over. No,
Right.
not so. So again, thank you so very much for sharing. I so appreciate it. Now, just before we go,
Mhm.
if someone, not if, I know there is someone listening that this will help, whether it was a parent or a young person or someone, a leader or a member of a church that knows someone in your community. I know you know someone in your community that you can share this video with. So you have the responsibility to render hope, encouragement, and or inspiration to that young person. So they're sitting in front of the computer, they're sitting in front of the screen. What would you like to say to them? Just
Yes.
as a
So,
closing statement, what would you like
oh,
to say?
sure, definitely. So if you're, in that situation, or you're kind of just trying to find yourself and you don't know which way to go, my thing to you is to write down what your goals are. I'm telling you, physically writing it down, not just thinking in your head, because sometimes you forget stuff. No, get you a pen, pad, whatever, a notebook, and you write down your goals for your life. Where are you trying to go? And write down how you're going to get there. It's just a simple outline. You're going to write what you want to do, what you want to be. How am I going to get there? Am I going to go to college? How am I going to pay for it? Like, you have to come up with the plan. You need a compass, a roadmap for your life. You got to start with writing it down. And then you have to figure out, how am I going to get there? Utilize your resources. There's so many resources that are available to us, even as young people and even as adults, of how we can reconfigure our lives so that we can get the things that we need. So that's the first thing I would definitely tell you, to write down your plan and how you're going to execute it. Make sure you use your resources, figure out, how am I going to do it? Do I have to go to a library? Do I have to ask somebody? And even if you don't know, if all else fails, reach out to me. I am a guru when it comes to finding out resources and information of how I can help somebody. But that's my main thing, is to make sure that you just write down your plan. You got to write down your plan for your life and actually start implementing and put time frames on it. Deadlines of, okay, I want to do this by this time frame, and I want to do this by that time frame. So that's the first thing I would definitely tell you. And make sure that you also start surrounding yourself about positive things, reading self-help books, reading positive things, going to, I know we can't go to church right now so much, but watching your spiritual programs, everything that you feed yourself, is it actually resonates with you, and it exudes out of you as well. So if you put a bunch of negative stuff in your head, a lot of times you're going to get negative stuff, because that's what you're putting in. So once you've already identified what you want to do and how you're going to get there, make sure you refill yourself by doing the positive things, reading the books, doing spiritual things, doing your praying, all that stuff that you have to do to build yourself up. So that's what I would definitely advise people to do. And as I had said before, be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. It starts with you. And until you can do that, you can't be true to nobody else until you start with you first.
Great. That's a great share. Thank you so very much. And on that note, we're going to leave you, but I want you to remember to be intentional about fulfilling God's purpose upon your life. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.